but I hear my man is here. I am joined, the man of the hour, Daniel Lazare. How you doing, man? You doing okay today?
Very well, thank you. Yeah,
Good.
much better than yesterday, I'll tell you that.
Well, good. I'm glad you are. I'm glad you are. Look, man, we're human beings.
Yeah,
Anything can happen at any moment.
yeah,
So no, I'm just glad you're well.
thank you.
Daniel Lazare, he's an independent journalist, author, that's known as a critic of the U.S. Constitution, American politics, government, and social policy in general. He's written several books, including The Frozen Republic, Velvet Coup, and America's Undeclared War. Daniel, I brought you on because I wanted to talk about something that seems to be the case. Maybe I'm getting this wrong. Maybe it's my own, you know, location on Earth as I'm perched looking at the world. It seems that we are unraveling as a society. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to read the book End Times by Peter Turchin. Um, he makes this strident case looking at historical context from society after society after society after society about how those societies unravel. And he describes a society that looks a lot like ours. And he's even predicting that the US will end up in either some kind of revolution or civil war. You would have to read the book because he goes into the reasons why. It has to do with this overproduction of elites and the miseration of the working class and the poor, and how the government gets so stick-to-itive that it lacks the ability and dexterity to deal with real issues. And eventually somebody rises up that wants to be an elite and uses the miseration of the poor as almost a cudgel to go after the political structure, creating either a civil war or some kind of revolution in a society. But beyond all of that, just as a microscopic view as you're looking at it, tell me if I'm wrong in this. I mean, even the number of mass shootings, the number of killings, the political killings that are taking place, it seems like those things are increasing. They even tried to kill Trump.
Yes, well, I mean, I think the breakdown is not just limited to the U.S. It extends around the world. I mean, Europe as well. India is in the grips of a right-wing Hindu nationalist party, contributing to growing income polarization. Same phenomenon we see around the world. Nepal just had an uprising, a very fierce uprising that put much of the capital, Kathmandu, in flames, and it turns out to have been, perhaps not dominated, but certainly right-wing, monarchist elements were highly influential in those protests. So it seems that this kind of Trumpist wave is just crashing around the world. So people draw comparisons. Rome is the favorite comparison.
Mm-hmm.
By the 5th century Rome, there was incredible income polarization. The wealthy senatorial elite, had 100 times more wealth per person than it had, in the 1st century.
Wow.
And the peasantry was being talk about immiseration, just reduced to the lowest levels of degradation and immiseration. And so when the barbarians, the Germans, the Goths, began making inroads into the country. In 410, Rome was sacked by a branch of the Goths known as the Visigoths. People actually, many of the peasants and displaced, urban slum dwellers viewed them as liberators, and to a certain degree they were. But the difference today is that it's Rome was one empire, in the middle, whereas capitalism today is a truly global system. So it's not a case of empires being besieged by barbarians from without. It's a case of an entire global system which seems to be wearing down. Is no longer functioning very well. It's causing all kinds of political disorders and breakdowns. And yeah, the crisis is very heavily concentrated in the U.S., but it's not only the U.S. It extends as far as Nepal, for example, which you would think of as a peripheral country, but no, but it's also in the eye of the storm. And then of course there's global warming, and
Yes.
that is a the real game changer. I mean that actually threatens the very future of humanity, and the system has no answer to that, none whatsoever. They are simply incapable of tackling this problem in any kind of systematic, effective way. And not only that, but Trump is now leading, the charge into unreality, into denial. This crisis is even taking place. So that the entire global system seems to be really under growing strain.
Yeah, but we don't have to. With two things, many people would say that what took place in Nepal was a color revolution. That if you look
Yeah.
at like the NGOs that were associated with pushing that to take place, the students' anger was real, no doubt about that. Like you can see them online, very pissed off, very angry. Stop saying these, this is a color revolution and everything else. But the people who were supporting it behind the scenes were these kind of U.S. instruments and U.S. institutions that were trying to create all sorts of chaos around China. I mean, and see, that's the other thing, right? There's a difference between an organic revolution that takes place versus attempts to destabilize a country that you're in a hybrid war with. So Colombia and Thailand gets involved, Pakistan and India gets involved. And it's like all of these things have in common is that they're surrounding China, who wants that Belt and Road Initiative, et cetera. Meaning they want to grow and expand and they want to create these kind of trade relationships. And it just so happens that many of the countries that they're trying to have these relationships with get embroiled in the conflicts. So it's like I feel like we're the root of that stuff. I don't know if it would happen that way if it wasn't for the way the U.S. was pushing it using these NGOs. But correct me if I'm wrong on that. I mean, I find it to be secondary from the crisis that I see in the United States. But I could be wrong. Please tell me if I am.
Well, actually, I really am not in a position to tell you you're wrong, because I don't know about the role of the NGOs in Nepal. It's entirely plausible there was a significant role, and it's entirely plausible that the U.S. is trying to use the NGOs in order to have leverage on Nepal and to push Nepal into an anti-China point of view. But bear in mind, the funny thing about it is, even though Nepal looks like it's next door to China, Nepal is walled off from China by the world's highest mountain range. And that's, so in a sense, Japan is closer to Los Angeles than Nepal is to China.
Oh, because of the mountains. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, that's a vast, huge barrier.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, Nepal's cultural ties are with India rather than China, but it's complicated. It's a part of the world I don't know that much about. But the U.S. role is very important. The U.S. is the global hegemon, and what that means is that the U.S. is far and away the greatest single power, if we just rule out China for the moment. And the U.S. uses its enormous political and economic clout in order to steer the world in a pro-U.S. direction. And certainly the Democrats under Biden were very aggressive in doing that. And now Trump is taking a somewhat different tack. It's kind of hard to figure out what Trump is really up to, but certainly Trump is taking a different approach. Trump seems to be really focused on the Persian Gulf these days. The Persian Gulf, the Caribbean, Latin America in general. And even it seems as if the South China Sea seems to have slipped off the U.S. radar screen for a short time. I mean, I'm sure it'll be back on very quickly. But for the moment, the U.S. is focused on the Persian Gulf and the Caribbean, and those are the real battle zones these days.
Yeah. For the audience that is not familiar with your books and familiar with this hypothesis that, look, the issue is we need a revolution, that the government, You mentioned just now that the government can't tackle climate change. The government can't even pass a budget. Like basic things, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
the government may cease to exist in about what, about 15 hours.
yeah,
Yeah.
but how can a government like that tackle big things, big issues? Like this country at one point sent a man to the moon, and now this country, if you look at the Artemis mission, that mission is trash. Like the amount of money that they're spending on this stuff, it's over bloated. It's not ready. It's going to be delayed. That's assuming that it takes off at all. Meaning you had a government at one point that seemingly had the ability to do big things, to dream big, to be braggadocious in the way that it went about that stuff and succeed at it. And now the most basic things in the world, like, hey, let's build high-speed rail. Can't pull it off.
Oh.
Hey, let's send a man to the moon or send a man to Mars. Can't pull it off. Hey, let's pass a budget. Can't pull it off.
Yes, absolutely correct. There's a political crisis around the world. All the global ruling institutions are breaking down. The UN, the EU, etc.
Yes.
But it's the U.S. where the damage is most extensive. I mean, America has a 238-year-old Constitution, dating from the age of silk knee breeches, powdered wigs, and slavery, and it's impossible to change. Literally impossible to change. And not only it's the same Constitution, yet in many ways it's actually worse. I mean, bodies like the Senate or the Electoral College are actually more imbalanced, less representative than they were in the 18th century. I mean, things are getting worse. The vice is squeezing tighter and tighter, and Congress hasn't worked in 30 years. The Supreme Court, is this arch reactionary body which is completely and wholly unaccountable to the general public, and the House is gerrymandered to death, and the U.S. Senate is a monstrosity of a misrepresentation. I could go through the figures. A majority of the country lives in 10 states, and they are outvoted 4-1 by the minority in the other 40. The Republicans have a 53-seat majority in the Senate today, yet they only represent 45% of Americans. Those 53 senators only represent 45% of Americans. The Electoral College, triples or even almost quadruples the weight of lily white rural states like Wyoming versus minority majority giants like California. It's undemocratic. And so the people have no real say in their government. And so things are really bad, but the people are completely powerless when it comes to setting things right. So it's like being in a car that's hurtling down a hill towards a cliff, and the steering wheel doesn't work, comes off in your hands, and the brakes don't work. So the car is out of control, and there's nothing you can do. So there is this sense of being in this juggernaut, which is just veering out of control. And Trump is grabbing power because nobody else is in a position to say no.
Yeah, but the public seems disengaged. Do you think that what's going on is that the public is so accustomed? How can I say this? I get the sense that they think that governments are permanent fixtures. Because we've had this government for so long, we've had two oceans to protect us. And we haven't really had, Canada and Mexico for the most part, allies, or at the very least not enemies. That we think this government is a permanent thing. Not that it's a legal fiction that can be unraveled. And, especially during revolutions or something like that, if there's some kind of political chaos. And by revolution, I don't mean you have two armies side by side that can take all sorts of shapes. That could be people killing each other. That could be states pulling away from the U.S. That can look like all sorts of ways. But do you think that they're under this myth or misconception that this stuff is just permanent and this stuff is real? And because they think it's permanent and real, they don't see a crisis. They don't see this idea of, look, this seems to be unraveling before our very eyes.
Well, first of all, the average American is juggling 3 jobs. He or she is financially stressed. They got kids to manage. There are signs that that kids are psychologically faring not very well these days. So parents have got a lot in their hands. They're economically insecure, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, the average person is weighed down by concerns like that. And some of the statistics are really alarming. Most Americans don't read papers. They don't watch TV news. They get their news, from a few scattered sources, and that's it. And most of the time, they're too busy going about their daily lives to pay attention. But yeah, I think that polls make it quite clear that there is a growing sense of alarm about where the country is heading, and a growing sense there's utter dismay, utter lack of confidence in the Democrats. Their polls are rock bottom. So even if the public is unhappy with what Trump is doing, they can't think of an alternative. They can't figure a way out of this box. So they feel trapped now. But as I say, they're depressed. They're worried with their own lives. They're trying to hold things together, but they feel helpless.
Yeah.
And in revolutions, helplessness does not cause revolutions. I mean, revolutions are anger, but also some sense of hope, some sense that people can control their own fates, and that's not happening yet.
Do you see that happening?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, in an odd way, I'm actually optimistic about the U.S. And more optimistic about the U.S. than I am about other regions of the world. For example, Europe. I mean, the U.S. is this very big country. It is in some ways very tightly united. Americans, there's a large Spanish-speaking population, but 98% of Americans are fluent in English. The market is very united. We shop for the same groceries from coast to coast, et cetera, et cetera. And we have the same body of law, the U.S. Constitution. And the U.S. Constitution is this very powerful document, which insinuates itself into every nook and cranny of everyday life. I mean, in the sense, the computer that I'm using, the software we're using to talk. I mean, in certain ways, these are constitutional, in the sense that these are all products of the U.S. political legal system. So so the Constitution is all pervasive, and yet it is breaking down, and it's unreformable and unrescuable. So therefore, what that means is that for 335 million people, they all face this problem, in that their politico-legal structure is collapsing around them. There is no way of stopping the collapse. And at some point, they've got to take things in hand and collectively restructure, reconstitute their society. And I think that's actually happening sooner rather than later. And that is a revolutionary moment. So
explain that. Why do you think that's happening sooner rather than later? Is it just because things get so bad standing still?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, Trump is gonna drive this country into the ground. I mean, Trump is is taking away benefits, health care, housing protections, 1,000 different things, which are going to impact very severely on living conditions for the mass of American workers and the middle class as well. And I am that there's no question in my mind that life is going to get very grim in the U.S. And the more things break down under Trump, the more clearly it becomes this monstrous oligarchy in which billionaires run the entire country for themselves, and that the average person has no influence, no control, no political say. So the question is, the political structure as a result is much more fragile than I think most people realize. In 1786, Louis XVI, the king of France, was 1786 though, 3 years before the Revolution. He embarked on a cross-country tour, which is very unusual because usually the king stayed in Versailles. And every stop he made, he was greeted by cheering crowds. Couldn't have been more enthusiastic. And anybody who watched that royal procession would have said the ties between the people and the monarchy are absolutely unbreakable. Come what may, the people of France love their king, want their king, believe in their king, et cetera, et cetera. 1786. 1789 marks the French Revolution. January 1793. The same guy, Louis XVI, is marched to the guillotine, gets his head chopped off, and no one in France lifts a finger to save him. And so all I'm saying is that what seemed to be an absolutely permanent situation turned out to be, in a blink of the eye, so to speak, turned out to be highly impermanent, highly volatile, highly explosive. And so they have this Constitution, which is 238 years old, and it seems to be completely permanent. Americans believe in their Constitution. They love their Constitution. They can't imagine life without their Constitution. Yet, when the Constitution goes, no one's going to lift a finger to save it because it's this completely raggedy, ancient document, which is totally out of date, can't be repaired in part, can only be replaced in toto. And so I believe that moment is coming. And now, I'm not complacent. It's not going to be an automatic process. But the fact is, and I think this process, I'm absolutely convinced, will be led by the working class, which is the people who have suffered most from this growing inequity and the ongoing social decay. And they will demand a workers' democracy. That is a democracy which is geared to the needs of the working class. And that's socialism. So the world's most reactionary conservative society could be on the brink of the most powerful socialist revolution, which will make the Bolshevik Revolution seem like a warm-up.
How do you make the distinction between people versus the document? And what I mean by that is I think Turchin would argue that when you have so many elites in a society, and they get to the point where they start conforming media, basically, they make themselves comfortable because they are comfortable. They have the ability to set policy where they can get more money. They have the ability to set policy where they can get media to say, well, they deserve more money. They have the ability to make sure you make less and they make more. And that becomes so ossified in a society. And on some level, you could say, well, the document is old and the document allows them to do it. But even if you had a different document, you're still stuck with the same process of people getting very accustomed to a particular system and figuring out how to grease the wheels for themselves to make more. Is that a document issue or is that a people issue? I hope you understand what I mean.
Yeah,
Like,
it's both.
okay,
I mean, you know, the Constitution starts off with "We the people,"
right.
and it seems to establish "We the people" as sovereign. In other words, the absolute supreme power. But then it spends the rest of the document, you know, sort of narrowing the people's power, you know, impinging on it, reducing it, subordinating it to a permanent body of law. And
Right.
in the end, the people sort of wind up, you know, you can think of the document as a kind of journey over 4,000 words, not counting the amendments. And so it starts off with a really big and powerful sense of we the people, and it ends up with a very reduced sense of the people, as the people very fragmented and severely constrained by this body of unchangeable law. So the sense of we the people is only half developed. But you've got to develop the sense in the full word, in the full sense. The people have got to understand that they really are in control, and they have the power to remake society. Not, and I mean this collectively and democratically, but revolutionarily, to remake society from top to bottom. Top to bottom. I mean, if we the people say, you know, we want to, you know, no more forks on the left and knives on the right. We the people ordain that, you know, that you should put knives on the left and forks on the right. People, they can do that. Whether they
Yeah.
should do that is another question. But the people have the power, and by the people I mean the mass of working people, have the power to completely remake their society from top to bottom and to deal with these extraordinarily oppressive, wealth differentials. You know, by the way, the Institute for Policy Studies, this left liberal group in Washington, had a report out in late August. The new CEO of Starbucks, who earns $95.8 million a year, earns 6,666 times what an average barista makes. I mean, this is extraordinary. And this is that, and you can't have a democracy with differentials like this. You know, we're not talking about about a doctor versus a carpenter. We're talking about something 1,000 times more extreme. And you can't have a democracy like this. And the people will have to deal, but they haven't gotten a sense of their strength. This hasn't happened. But if it happens in the US, and I think things are very brittle, if they happen here, this will be a transformative global event. Russia in 1917 was on the edge of Europe. It was not the center of Europe. It was on the edge of Europe. The French Revolution was in the center of Europe, which made it so extraordinarily powerful. So in this sense, America will be closer to France in 1789. But we're sitting, the America is entering into a revolutionary situation, and that is a event of global historical significance.
I feel you. From your mouth to God's ears. I guess from my point of view, it feels like it's unraveling in a way that's violent. That people, and maybe this is just because of the killings that I'm seeing recently. You know, your point of view could be tweaked just based on what you're saying. The guy who, what was it, the Michigan killer, Charlie Kirk, tried to kill Donald Trump. You got the guy who went into the church and murdered all those people, the Mormon thing. This stuff seems to be happening more often.
Yeah, somebody shot up an ABC affiliate in California. Mean, remember, there are more guns than people in the United States.
Murder of the CEO. That stuff seems to be more. And if you look at social media, the language, like the way the Charlie Kirk thing is being used as a political cudgel. Donald Trump putting military in various cities that are effectively democratic cities. That stuff is so beyond the pale. I don't think America has realized how beyond the pale that is. He is making it up in order to do that. Meaning what he is doing is not even something that's in law. He is just doing it. And so it's kind of like, okay, what is this? This looks like a creeping fascist government like a frog being boiled, but they don't necessarily entirely see the fact that they're being boiled yet. I don't know.
Yes,
It
I think
just looks like
that's
something is
correct.
changing.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's social breakdown and authoritarianism, and the two go hand in hand. I mean, if the fabric is unraveling, as I said, there are more guns than people in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I think the last time I saw it was that the figure is more than 400 million guns, and there's only 330 million people in the
Wow,
U.S.
like 1.5 guns per person.
That's 1.2 or thereabouts. Anyway, yeah, and for every man, woman, and child, yeah, and so therefore, people do take pot shots at can take their gun out and kill people whenever they want, but that's not a social movement. That's actually a highly individualistic form of warfare. And it really does play into the hands of the ultra right, and Trump uses it in order to deepen his authoritarianism. I mean, as I'm sure you know, Pete Hegseth is bringing in 800 generals, U.S. generals, to a meeting in Quantico, Virginia. No one knows what the hell it's for. No one knows what the hell.
They said warrior ethos, whatever the hell that means. Warrior ethos.
No one knows, but I mean, plainly, things are just falling apart in this country, and an authoritarianism, dictatorship, is advancing by leaps and bounds, the process is intensifying, but workers are not going to win by pulling out their guns and taking aim at people they don't like. They have got to act collectively and in solidarity, and demand a change of government, a change not only in the people of government, but a change in the very nature of government.
We have to close this, but I guess my concern is that both of those things are equals. And I don't mean equals in the sense that one is that they're equally good. What I mean is, if you had let's say you had a graph and you were plotting these elements on a graph, one would be -1, the other one would be +1. I'm saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, they can break either way. Both are some level of societal decay. It's just one, the society is trying to correct itself in the process of that decay, whereas the other one, it just unravels. People are shooting each other. Countries or states are fighting back against the federal government because of the way the federal government is putting in troops. People are rioting at the Capitol. Like, that doesn't seem like people are coming together. It seems like people are falling apart in this kind of political fashion. Last point, I'll let you close it on this one.
Well, essentially, we're frozen at a level of early democracy, and plainly, humanity has got to advance to a higher stage of democracy.
Agreed.
International democracy, where the people of the entire world take control of their planet, and master it collectively and address collectively things like global warming. Homo sapiens are part of the hominin line, and previous hominin species have died out. Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalis, Homo denisovus, whatever it was called, they've all died out. So the question is, will Homo sapiens, who have advanced to a fantastic level, but can they make the leap to the point where, as a species, they can collectively master their own fate, and take control of their global society and make it work for the great majority of people within it? So we're really at a historic point, and as I say, I remain fundamentally optimistic.
You know, it's funny, and we'll close on this. In Star Trek, when they try to explain how that leap took place, they effectively said there was a world war, there was another war, the planet had gotten to the brink of collapse in regards to the environment, and humanity, just as a self-preservation mechanism, became better stewards as a result. But all hell broke loose before humanity made the cognitive jump.
Well, I hope we don't have to go through hell.
Right.
But
Right.
I do agree that essentially out of crisis comes solutions.
Daniel, I always appreciate these conversations, man. I swear I do. Daniel Lazare. Daniel Lazare is an independent journalist, author, best known as a critic of the U.S. Constitution, American politics and government, social policy in general. He's written several books, including Frozen Republic, Velvet Coup, America's Undeclared War. You can find Daniel's writing on X at DH Lazare. You can also find him on permanentrevolution.org and daniellazare.substack.com. Daniel, you have a fantastic rest of your day, man. Thank you for this.
Same to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Shout out to Daniel Lazare. Always appreciate it.